to Sailing SYMRA. It is no surprise that a boat nearly 100 years old has a unique history. However, in this episode, I'll reveal a secret that even the owners of the boat didn't know for 60 years. I'm also going to pull back the cover and share photos and stories of some of SYMRA's past adventures. Hey, I'm Tanner Sparling. I am 10 years old, and during the school year I live in Evergreen, Colorado. My family owns a wooden sailboat named SYMRA, built in 1941 and is currently moored in a marina on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. That's in Canada! Every year, my family sets sail during summertime to explore the wild places in the Pacific Northwest. My parents have been sailing since they got married, and we bought SYMRA when I was 3, so I have been sailing boats for as long as I can remember. When I'm not sailing SYMRA in the PNW, you might find me on an update, a 420 or our Melgus 15. This is my dad, Jonathan, and this is my mom, Gretchen. They have challenged me to learn more about sailing as I get older, and it's a lot of fun. This channel will document the stories of our adventures, from the beautiful scenery, caring for our boat, and more. Join us on Sailing SYMRA. It all started in 1936 when a sailor named Bill Larson commissioned his dream boat to be built. He hired naval architect Ed Monk Sr. to design and construct a 40-foot racing cutter. Psst, a cutter is a sailboat with 2 sails forward of a single mast. Monk drew the boat for Larson, and they contracted the Seattle Edison Vocational School for Witchcraft and Wizardry to build SYMRA. Just kidding, the Seattle Edison Vocational School taught students to be shipwrights. This was an affordable way to build a boat. Keep in mind that back then a boat like this cost about as much as a nice house. In the 1930s, wooden yachts were designed by architects similar to how a house is designed and built. A boat designer's name and type would then be attributed to the boat's make and model. For example, we say a 1967 Ford Mustang or a 2020 J105. We would call SYMRA a 1941 Monk cutter. SYMRA was built and launched on April 26, 1941 into the Tacoma Yacht Club, and she was immediately recognized as a competitive racing opponent. This is where the Haley family enters the story. Fred Haley sailed against SYMRA in the yacht club and dreamed of owning a race boat with SYMRA's speed and beauty. When Larson died in 1952, Fred bought SYMRA from his estate. This photo, after about 5 years of Haley ownership, is the oldest one I have of Fred and his son Mark together, along with Fred's wife Dorothy and daughter Susan. I love how Mark is shorter than the same flagpole that we still use today. Check out this article from June 22, 1972, titled World War II Craft Whisks Away from Fleet, where SYMRA left behind a fleet of 40 yachts to win first place. Another memorable racing event is documented in this article from 1953 when our gale puffed up during a race with winds reaching 63 miles per hour. The story reads that SYMRA, a big 40-foot cutter newly purchased by Fred Haley, came out for a trial run and without entering the race promptly lost all her canvas. This photo captures what the wind did to those brand new sails. Back then, they didn't use Dacron, they actually used a strong type of canvas. Mark Haley shares that he remembers this day as a young boy and recalls how expensive it was to replace all of those sails. So expensive, in fact, he says his mother went without buying a washing machine for several more years, and that Fred never lived that down. Fred continued to race SYMRA up until the late 1970s. This was nearly Monk's first sailing yacht, and he somehow managed to build a champion. This article headline reads, "Nobody knows why it goes." The story goes on to say that SYMRA can trade tacks with the best of them. The photograph of her is captioned, "SYMRA, uncanny speed, a lovely boat." She was one of the fastest boats in the PNW, and nobody knew why. Fred's son Mark grew up sailing SYMRA with his family. When they retired SYMRA from active racing, Mark bought the boat from his dad and began to cruise on SYMRA with his own young family. Here's a photo of Mark while SYMRA was on the hard in 1974. Like me and his own sons, Graf and Aiden, Mark's earliest memories were with SYMRA as a part of the family. This is when SYMRA's story gets interesting. By 2010, the Haleys had owned the boat for about 60 years. They logged thousands of miles and spent countless hours varnishing the mast and caring for the wind boat. But what they didn't realize is that nobody actually knew the true designer of SYMRA. That is, not until an old-timer at the Tacoma Yacht Club ran across Bill Larson's personal copy of the December 1936 issue of the Yachting magazine. Check out the old cover. Inside, on page 70, there was a drawing by the famous yacht designer, John G. Alden, and this design looked almost exactly like SYMRA. Mark writes that he was gobsmacked by this surprising discovery. Why was this so shocking? Well, this was like learning that your Cadillac might actually be a Corvette. I mentioned that John Holden was a famous yacht designer. He really became famous after his boat designs won several races from the East Coast to Bermuda. His boats were known for their speed and beauty. Alden's sailboats were legendary, and Monk had apparently ripped off the designs building SYMRA. With this discovery, Mark reached out to the MIT Nautical Museum in 2016 to verify his suspicions. Sure enough, the curator, Kurt, confirmed that SYMRA's lines were indeed in Alden. However, Monk claimed SYMRA's lines as his own and built a very fast sailboat as his first sailing design. He did make a few minor modifications to Alden's drawings. He added a porthole, he moved the propeller lower, and then he added his signature keyhole-style bulkhead arch down below. The rest of the boat is exactly like Alden's Hull 636, and so MIT added SYMRA to the list of Alden's boats for a total of 7 Hull 636s made. Now SYMRA is actually an Alden cutter, or maybe it should become Alden Monk. Or would it be a Monk Alden? Either way, this is a very unique part of SYMRA's story. Soon after Mark uncovered this amazing detail, his family decided it was time to pass on SYMRA to the next stewards of this special boat. That's when my family enters the story. My mom and dad bought the boat and relocated SYMRA from Tacoma to Bainbridge Island, where my family lived for a few years. We spent a lot of time sailing the nearby waters, traveling as far north as the San Juans, and occasionally into British Columbia. Looking back at the Haleys' photos, it's incredible to see how many of the same places they first discovered aboard SYMRA before we did. After a while, my parents relocated to Colorado for work, and we repositioned the boat further north to Anacortes and now Van Isle. This made it easier to set off to remote destinations during our cruising expeditions. In our 6+ years of ownership, we've done countless projects, upgrades, and even a new paint job, picking the teal as the new bottom color. We'll get into the mechanics and projects in future episodes, and we'll be sure to share our boat tour soon. In our next episode, we'll kick things up a notch and share details of our cruising grounds and summer plans. Thanks for joining us on Sailing SYMRA. Until next time!